Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Twins Daily Offseason Live. It is our new show that we're just getting started here tonight. We're going to be doing live shows once or twice a week here, covering the Twins offseason. This is a new series we're trying out. The idea is to make this content very accessible to people. You can watch these live streams. You can interact with us during them. You can go to the website, twinsdaily.com, and check out the articles the next day. You'll be able to find the videos. You'll be able to find written content on these topics. You can subscribe to our podcast, find it in audio versions. So we're going to be covering the offseason from every angle here. It's going to be a unprecedented and intriguing offseason for the Twins, which is why we think we want to get some different voices and get some different thoughts on everything that's going to be happening. So tonight, what we're going to be doing is something a little different, a little fun for the first episode. We're going to play Offseason Jeopardy. Yes. We've got three Twins Daily writers here on hand as our contestants in tonight's game. So let's go ahead and introduce the three of them before we get started here. Gentlemen, let's start with Andrew. Why don't you just tell the crowd who you are and where you're coming from here tonight?
Yeah, Andrew Gebo. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Gebo, G-E-B-O with 3 underscores. And I'm coming to you from downtown Minneapolis.
All right. Matthew Taylor. Matthew, where are you coming to us from here tonight?
What's up, guys? Matthew Taylor. I am in Victoria, Minnesota, so out west here.
Nice. And we've got coming from the dirty South, Nash Walker.
Yeah,
Nash, how you doing?
I'm down in Missouri, but I got my Twins wall still. So I gotta stay. I keep the Twins pride down here, even though I'm like Cardinals Royals territory.
Looking good. All right, so we'll lay out the rules of the game here real quick. Basically, the idea is that we're going to be kicking off the series with this show tonight, and each category on our Jeopardy board here that we've got represents a different topic pertinent to the Twins offseason. So rotation targets is going to be free agent targets that the Twins might look to fill some of those vacancies on their starting pitching staff, which are probably going to be emerging. Arbitration is going to be arbitration-eligible Twins players, so we'll discuss what they might be looking to make in 2021, whether they're worth keeping around. The Twins, of course, have the option on those players to non-tender and then negotiate salaries, and a lot of those guys are probably going to be candidates for contract extensions as well, so we'll probably touch on that. Bullpen free agents, just like it says, Twins are going to have some openings in the bullpen that they need to address most likely. They're going to lose a couple guys to free agency there as well. Twins free agents is, of course, Twins players who are eligible for free agency. So the question with those guys, obviously, is should the Twins pursue bringing them back in 2021? And in classic Jeopardy fashion, we had to have a potpourri, which is just a random mingling of Twins-related offseason questions. So for those of you in the audience, we love to have you interact. You can mention in the comments. And the deal is the contestants cannot see your comments. I can. So as these questions come up, you're welcome to answer them. I'll try to give some love to the first person who gets an answer on a question or the most hilarious answers that are submitted, because I do love me some hijinks. And the way we're going to do this, folks, there's no real buzzer system or anything like that. We're going to go around the horn. Each person will pick a topic, a question, and they will either answer it, or if they don't know it, the other two can try to steal. We'll add up points. We'll announce a winner. But the real idea here is to explore a bunch of different topics about the offseason. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of these answers. I see that Yorfula has put in Byron Buxton already. That might be the answer to one. And then if that is, he's got it. He's way ahead of the curve. So nice job. What is Byron Buxton? Thank you. That's much more Jeopardy.
We got to do that. We got to do
Jeopardy-centric. Yeah, I mean, the answers are going to be in question form. I'm not going to hold you guys to it. I know it's a little hard to do. So without further ado, with all the ground rules laid out, let's get started. Andrew, the board is yours to get started here.
We're going to go Twins free agents for 200.
Twins free agents for 200. He finished 9th in the AL MVP voting in 2019 and was a Silver Slugger.
Ooh. Who is Nelson Cruz?
That is correct. Nelson Cruz, yes. He was 9th in the AL MVP voting in 2019 and a Silver Slugger. I'm guessing both those things are probably going to be true again this year. Maybe not 9th, but I bet he'll be in the top 10. Nelson Cruz, of course, one of the most interesting, probably the most interesting Twins free agent Hitting the open market, his potential suitors have doubled with the universal DH. Two, like we said, MVP, borderline MVP caliber seasons with the Twins. Also, he's 40 years old, tailed off a little bit at the end of the 2020 season here. Andrew, what's your vibe on trying to make an aggressive pursuit of Nelson Cruz this offseason?
I don't know about an aggressive pursuit. I do know there is some mutual interest there, from both parties to bring him back to Minnesota. And if they can bring him back on an affordable deal, a 1-year deal only, I'm all in on it. I wouldn't want to go to 2 years on him, and I don't want to get in a bidding war for him either, given his age and the way he fell off at the end of 2020.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. But man, people are going to be hurting if Nelly's gone. Man, he's the heart of this team, and that's going to leave a big void to be filled in the clubhouse, as we know. All right, Nash, you're next up. The board is yours. What's your pick, my man?
All right, let's go arbitration for 500, Nick.
Wow, diving straight into the deep end.
Let's go.
He has led the Twins in RBIs in each of the past 3 seasons.
Who is Edizito Rosario?
Who is Eddie Rosario? Boom. All right, that one was probably easy for 500. I don't know if I staggered the difficulty level enough, but this is the first Jeopardy board I've ever created. By the way, jeopardylabs.com if anyone wants to try to make one of these things on their own. It's a free service. It's a really cool tool I discovered that I very much enjoy. Eddie Rosario, another key piece this offseason. He's up for arbitration for the last time. Made $7.75 million in 2020. Probably going to be due for a raise after, as we mentioned, leading the team in RBIs once again. I think there's a pretty prevalent sentiment that Eddie might not be back next year. Nash, where do you land on that?
I mean, your gut reaction is he should be gone, right? I think the Twins have options to fill in for Rosario on left field. But also you think about it, last year it made a lot of sense. I thought it made sense last year. But it made sense last year because they had 8 other guys in the lineup who were all producing. And so the argument I've kind of made this year, and this is where I'm standing now, and I'm sure it'll change over the next weeks and months before we get there, but I think if you're going to have a lineup that has so many question marks, Eddie, to me, is a sure thing. Even in that shortened season, he was an above-average hitter. His numbers were mostly the same across the board to his career line. You know what you're going to get from him, and some of those things we don't like and, frankly, we hate, but some of those things are valuable. And I think just having that power bat in the middle of the lineup when you've lost guys that you thought you had power in Jorge Polanco and Mitch Garver, and I just think now he's a sure thing. And if you lose him and you lose Nelly, and I know Tom had a video about this too, that can be that's a big power takeaway from the middle of the lineup, especially Nelly. And then you put Eddie on top of that, who's probably you can pencil in for 30 homers a year. That's like 25 to 30 every year. He's going to do that for you if he stays healthy. So I like that certainty, Nick and Andrew and Matthew, but I know a lot of people would rather see a cheaper option like Kirilloff in left field, an unproven option to me in a time where this lineup is uncertain overall.
Yeah, I mean, with pertinence to just about if Nelson Cruz is gone, I think that makes it a lot harder to part with Eddie Rosario because you're losing 2 of those proven commodities, 2 of those power bats, 2 of those RBI guys. I think one interesting angle that's going to be discussed a lot in this offseason live series is what's going to happen with payroll next year. How far is spending going to be scaled back? I think the Twins are certainly going to be spending less than they did this year, which was a new record. I think the question is how much. It's probable that they can't bring back both Rosario and Nelson Cruz without kind of blowing their entire wad. It's a prioritization thing, I guess. And so that's going to be interesting to follow. Matthew, the board is yours, my friend. Where are you going?
Let's go Twins free agents for 100.
Twins free agents for 100. During Players Weekend, this veteran left-hander once wore D Mountain on the back of his jersey.
Who is Rich Hill, Nick?
Who is Rich Hill? Yes. So Rich Hill, sort of an interesting case here as we head into the offseason. I think he pitched very well, lived up to any expectations that people might have had this season. Finished with a strong ERA, very much in line with his past years. Unfortunately, didn't get any opportunity to factor into the playoffs. But 40 years old, things kind of worked out perfectly this year where he didn't really have to pitch an extensive workload at all, right, with just the 60 games, and he missed some time. So you think there's any chance, Matthew, that Rich Hill's coming back here in 2021?
I personally don't think so. He's going to be 41 next year. We got plenty of pitching depth. You just think of all the bullpen options of guys that you have, and then just look at the starting rotation. He's just a guy that doesn't give you any confidence. Over a 60-game season, couldn't count on him to stay healthy. Certainly over 162-game season, another year older at 41. He just seems like the type of guy that you have to work so hard around him in order to get him in and in order to get him the starts and the appearances and limit the innings. He taxes your bullpen. It just seems like, I mean, he's a good guy. People like to play with him. I enjoyed watching him, enjoyed hearing the grunts off the mound as he was pitching. But it just seems like you have to organize your entire game plan around how to make it work with Rich Hill. It just seems like too much downside, and there still is the upside there. But with the limited innings, you're not going to get more than 5 innings out of him per start. Just doesn't seem worth it to me. He seems like an easy guy to part with.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it worked better in the short season. It's almost hard to – he's not going to throw 200 innings or anything close to it, even if he tries to come back. So you got to wonder how they would sort of try to navigate that and make that work over 162 games. If that happens, that's just another one of the many uncertainties we're bringing into this 2021 offseason. Andrew, the board heads back to you. Which category and price level would you like to select?
Arbitration for 200.
We'll go arbitration for 200. 83% of this reliever's total pitches were sliders in 2020.
Who is Matt Whistler?
Matty Whistler with the wiffle ball slider, yes. So the Twins picked him up off waivers, and he's actually, due to his service time, he's going to be in his second year of arbitration this year. Should still be pretty cheap because he didn't have much of a track record at all coming into this season. I think bringing Whistler back is pretty much a no-brainer, Andrew. I assume you'd agree on that. He was phenomenal. He had a 1-something ERA, tons of strikeouts. He was quite dominant. I was a little disappointed he didn't get any chance to pitch in the playoffs. But what kind of role are you envisioning for Matt Whistler? I mean, can you count on him as a late-inning weapon, or are you still trying to stack several guys ahead of him in the leverage spots?
You don't want to see a little bit more like consistent performance from him before I want to put him in those high leverage situations. He kind of burst on the scene this year, but he has the potential to do it. And I'm also going to say I think that obviously re-sign him in arbitration, but be also open to maybe giving him a 2 to 3 year deal. I would imagine after this last year of arbitration, he hits the free agent market. If he pitches as well as he did this year, his price could go up a lot. So it may be in the Twins' best interest to actually tack a couple years onto the contract beyond just this one extra year of arbitration.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. This is a good chance with a lot of these guys to look at maybe trying to strike a value deal, especially with not knowing what the offseason landscape is going to look like. If these guys are not getting any kind of bites or they're seeing that there's not a lot of spending going on, they might try to take an opportunity to secure some long-term money. For everyone who's tuning in from any of the various platforms, you might be watching this live stream, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, Periscope, YouTube Live. You're welcome to comment. I can see all your comments. The contestants can't, so you can answer the questions. This is Twins Daily Offseason Live, and we are playing some Jeopardy here, looking at some key Twins offseason topics. Kicking it back over to my main man, Nash. Nash, where would you like to go on the board?
Nick, rotation targets for 300.
Rotation targets for 300. At the time, this Japanese righty signed a $155 million contract with the Yankees in 2014. It was the 5th largest deal ever for an MLB pitcher.
Nick, he got lit up last night. Who is Masahiro Tanaka?
He sure did. So maybe not coming into free agency in the best of situations. Maybe he can bounce back. He'll probably have a chance because I think we all know it's going to be Yankees, Astros in the ALCS. We were talking about this before the show. No matter what happens, no matter what circumstances change, of course, it's going to be those teams. Who is Boof Bonzer? That's a great reference there, LJPATR. Masahiro Tanaka, is he a name that interests you? And what kind of interest do you think he's going to draw here on the offseason market, Nash?
Yeah, he's interesting. I think his postseason track record is certainly interesting to me. He's been great in October, not this year, but he's been really good in October in the past. And the Twins just need to find guys who can help them win in October. I think that's the main goal here. We just need to win a playoff game. But he's interesting. I don't know the upside there. But we also, we saw upside in a guy who has similar stuff in Maeda with the slider sinker stuff, and not a lot of velo from Tanaka. It's not a high upside signing, I would say, if you were to go after Masahiro. But the Yankees might just bring him back. He's comfortable there, I'm sure. And I figure with free agents that are coming from New York, I automatically assume they're going back there. Like DJ LeMahieu, I'm certain he will probably be back there. Tanaka might go. But I just see Yankee free agents as perhaps going back more often than not, just because they have that financial flexibility. But yeah, I think he's interesting. Like if the Twins saw something in him that they thought they could pull more out of, as they did trading for Maeda or with Matt Whistler out of the bullpen, yeah, I would be open to that for sure.
I like it. Well, you've got your points. You've pulled into the lead. 800 points for Nash so far. He's going in deep into the well here, trying to score some points, trying to get an early advantage here. We'll see if Matthew can make up some ground here, as the board now is his.
All right. Well, let's try to make it up here. Let's go for Twins free agents for $500.
For $500. When he signed with the Twins last offseason, they became the 10th different team he's played for in the major leagues.
Ooh.
This one's not that easy. Not as easy as some others.
Who is Alex Avila?
That is incorrect.
Ooh.
Nash or Andrew, would you like to try to jump in? Nash.
Who is Tyler Clippard, Nick?
Totally.
Tyler Clippard. Yes, indeed. Well, even though Nash steals those points, Matthew, I'm still curious to hear your thoughts about Tyler Clippard. I thought he played a great role this year. In fact, I thought he was truly the unheralded star of this Twins bullpen. Super reliable, really played his role well, got lefties out. He was everything the Twins wanted him to be. Signed a $2.75 million one-year contract this year. My thought is if you can bring him back on anything similar, you got to do it. What are you thinking, Matthew?
Yeah, and he's another guy, Nick, similar to Whistler, that bummed that he didn't get a chance to pitch in the postseason. I agree, he was just absolutely massive in a bullpen full of righties. He is a righty, but shuts down lefties and is super valuable. So he honestly, of all the free agents, even Nelson Cruz included, he would probably be my number one guy that I would focus on bringing back, just because of the value that he brings and the low price. I think he's a really easy guy to bring back and is going to bring you value without messing up your books, without prohibiting you from doing anything else. I think bringing back Clippard, relying on him to shut down lefties and righties alike, it's just a no-brainer. Let's bring back Clippard next year for sure.
Hey, I'm with you, man. I'm in full agreement. We'll see what the market holds, but it's going to be tough out there for free agents, and I can't imagine that Clippard's going to have super high demand just because he doesn't have that dominant profile like some others that are probably going to be really in the sights of these contending teams. So with that said, we swing back around to Andrew. Andrew, where would you like to go here on the board?
We're going to go rotation targets for 500.
Going deep on rotation targets. This left-hander and former All-Star has spent his entire career pitching in Chicago, first on the south side and then the north side.
Who is Jose Quintana?
Bingo, correct. Jose Quintana, another very interesting type of name on this free agent market. He was an almost ace caliber pitcher with the White Sox, got traded to Cubs, and has never been the same since. Really more of still a good pitcher, ERA in the low fours usually, not hitting the open market here with any particular momentum. So to me, he looks like a possible value play. What's your vibe on him, Andrew?
First, I'm not totally convinced on him. I don't necessarily think he improves the rotation all that much as it is right now. I think there's better options out there that might be a similar price or maybe even a little more affordable. If a lot of those guys do get, snagged up early and Quintana is still on the board at an affordable price, then he makes sense, but he certainly isn't going to be a primary option for the Twins rotation this offseason.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I mean, it's interesting to just think about the Twins sort of rotation picture as it stands. For the first time that I can remember, they're not really looking for that ace. They don't need to find someone who's better than anyone on their staff. There's not that urgency because Maeda is an ace. I mean, he pitched like an ace, and it really seems like the Twins kind of helped him turn that corner. I didn't think there was anything fluky about it. And Jose Barrios pitched extremely well in the playoffs. We didn't even get to see Pineda, who I trust in a playoff game. I think the Twins have good playoff starters already. They just want to add a little more depth in case someone gets injured and give themselves a little more length to get through the season. So, we'll see about guys like Quintana. I mean, the upside plays with a little value, I think, is maybe where the Twins are going to want to live in that starting pitching free agency pool. Nash, it's over to you.
Nick, Potpourri for 200.
Finally, someone hits the potpourri. Yes. In his first year as hitting coach, the Twins offense saw an 89-point drop in OPS.
Who is Edgar Varela?
Edgar Varela, of course, replaced James Rosen as Twins hitting coach, and it did not go well. Pretty much every hitter took a major step back. It looked like a lot of guys had issues they just couldn't figure out and really were stymied by Astros pitching in the playoffs. It was like they just knew how to pitch everyone. That's not what you like to see. That doesn't speak well to a hitting coach necessarily. At the same time, 60 games, didn't really have a lot of time to gel with these guys. I think if the Twins want to be reactive and take some sort of action that will give the fans some sort of answer, I guess, for what happened, letting Varela go would be kind of the obvious move. But do you think that's something they'll look into doing, Nash?
No, I don't. I think they really like him. He's someone who has been there with these guys that have come up. He's been in the minor league system with these guys. I think they like him. I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the number one question of this entire offseason for every team is how do you gauge what just happened? How do you gauge the 60-game season? I think with something like the Twins, we expected some regression. We didn't expect the severe regression from Jorge Polanco and from some of the other guys, but Mitch Garver, of course. But it's going to be interesting to see how much they valued the hitting coach aspect, because you cannot find a Twins post about how they couldn't hit this year and not find a comment that's, it's because of Rouse. And he definitely probably had, that was a factor. I think definitely, but it's impossible to gauge how much of a factor that was. Jorge Polanco's ankle was bothering him. Mitch Garver didn't want to play from the beginning of the season. Had questions about playing, I should say. And I'm not saying that, hindered his ability to hit, but I think we have to, excuse me, and we talked about this on the postgame pint too. You have to factor in the mental aspect for a lot of these guys. I know you and I talked about that, Nick, a little bit. How much of the season and the strict guidelines and the not going out, how much of that impacted certain guys? It's just impossible to know. So there are many factors at play here. I don't think they're going to move on from Varela.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It would be an uncharacteristically sort of snappy reaction from this Twins front office, and it's just so hard to draw conclusions about what happened this season. To everyone who's tuning in, maybe if you're tuning in for the first time, we're playing Twins Offseason Jeopardy. We've got Andrew Gibo, Nash Walker, and Matthew Taylor of Twins Daily. My name is Nick Nelson, and we are going over sort of the whole free agent, offseason, Twins arbitration landscape here and trying to explore a few decisions as we play the game. We've got Nash with a hefty lead, and Matthew needs to build up his score a little bit. Still sitting at 100. Matthew, where are you going on the board here?
Well, let's try it now. Bullpen free agents for 500.
Wow, diving into the deep end of the pool. Sharing a first name with the Twins Hall of Famer, the San Diego reliever missed nearly all of the 2020 season with elbow issues.
Oh my gosh, am I going to get this wrong again? Who is Kirby Yates?
Yes.
Who is Kirby Yates?
Good job, Matty.
Yeah, attaboy. Matthew with a nice little 500-point score. Kirby Yates was one of the most dominant relievers in baseball for several years, as mentioned, coming off this injury-riddled year. Going to be an interesting market. Is that a name that intrigues you as the Twins sort of look for relief arms to supplement the bullpen here, Matthew?
For me, he's actually not a name that's at the top of my list. There are quite a few, actually. I think in a free agent market that's not super big on starting pitchers outside of Bauer. And there's not really a ton of great position players either, and the Twins aren't really in a big spot for that anyways. I think there is a pretty good bullpen market, and I'm sure there's a lot of other questions where we will discuss them. But I think just Yates, who's 33 or 34 years old anyways, coming off of elbow issues, it's just too many question marks, and bullpen, relief pitchers in general, there's just question marks as it is. So I think you're already at 2 or 3 question marks with Kirby Yates, which is 2 or 3 more than I want to give a big deal to out of a relief pitcher.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's going to be a tough year for relievers. There's a bunch of different names out there and a lot of guys in that similar situation who've had quite a bit of success, but are just carrying those huge question marks. And I don't know, so many teams have been bitten by these relief deals over the years, including the Twins, basically the only time they've ever waded into the deep end of that pool with Addison Reed. So I'll be curious to see how aggressive the Twins are with any of those guys, or if they stick to their bargain searching ways, looking for value. As we swing back our board around, folks, if you're in the comments section, I can see your comments. The contestants cannot, so feel free to enter answers if you know it. Any questions or comments you have on any of these players we're talking about, we'd love to hear them. Or if you have any funny things to say, I'll probably put them on the board. So, Andrew, as we kick the board back to you here, sir, where are you going?
Rotation targets for 400.
Rotation for 400. He opted out of the 2020 season, leaving the Mets rotation shorthanded.
Who is the Stro Show? Marcus Stroman.
Marcus Stroman. So this is a name that kind of strikes my fancy a little bit. Who is Marcus Astroman, says one of the commenters. That's a funny nickname. I haven't heard that, but I like it. It was a guy that, a lot of Twins fans were interested in seeing them pursue at the 2019 deadline, I think, when he was with the Blue Jays. Ended up going to the Mets, who were hoping to get him for a year and a half. Oh, it was autocorrect. You know what? Even if it's autocorrect, man, that was a great nickname. Hopefully he's not an Astro, man. I don't want him going to the Astros, by the way. Ended up going to the Mets, and they were hoping to get him for a year and a half. I think this year what happened was he was hurt at the start of the year, stayed on, active long enough to sort of accrue a year of service, and so now he's going to be going into free agency without much of a recent sample for people to go on. Andrew, what's your vibe on Marcus Stroman? I've always thought he'd be kind of a fun teammate for Jose Barrios. They're kind of similar pitchers in ways, I think. Interest you at all?
It really does. Yeah, I've always been a big Marcus Stroman fan, especially what he did in the World Baseball Classic. He pitched his you-know-what off there in that tournament. That was fun to watch. I think he does make a lot of sense. I don't think Marcus Stroman is your front-of-the-rotation ace-type pitcher, and the Twins don't need him to be that. They can slot him in behind Maeda and Barrios. And if you've got a guy like Marcus Stroman as your third or maybe your fourth, depending on what other moves they make, that's a really deep rotation. And considering where he's at and didn't pitch this year, he's had some injury problems, he's not going to be all that expensive. And so that's a really good target for the Twins. I'd like to see them go out there and try to get Marcus Stroman.
I agree. I think he's one of my favorite names that we're going to talk about on this board. We're going to have an episode coming up on Offseason Live that specifically focuses on the starting pitching market, and I think he'll be one of the names that kind of stands out, especially with, coming off missing a season. Wasn't super great last year in 2019, so I don't know if he's going to be able to command a monster contract, and that might just be the Twins' sweet spot.
Hey, for what it's worth, too, he did say Josh is one of his favorite teammates ever.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Maybe there's some interest on his end. You never know.
Maybe he's looking for a robe. I don't know.
Yeah.
You like Josh, don't you, Nash?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that Josh likes Nash. Oh, that Nash likes Josh, but maybe it's mutual. I don't know. Speaking of which, Nash, the board is over to you.
All right, let's go Potpourri for 300.
Potpourri. He drove in 5 runs in 7 games played as a rookie in 2020.
5 runs in 7. Who is Brent Rooker?
Who is Brent Rooker? Another key piece, I think, in the Twins' offseason planning. He looked good. I think he looked ready. I think he's ready to play a role for this team. Suffered a fractured forearm on a hit by pitch that ended his season, and that's a tough injury. It's not something necessarily you're going to just bounce right back from. So maybe a little bit of uncertainty around him as we go into this offseason, but he's a guy that the Twins front office drafted, really likes. He's slugged in the minors. He showed some good things. What kind of role are you envisioning for Brent Rooker as you kind of plan for the 2021 season, Nash?
I think it's clear. Something that the Twins have to consider is, again, how much of Max Kepler struggling against lefties was sample size this summer. And he looked lost against lefties. So I think Rooker platoon for Kepler's, it makes sense in right field, and that's what he was before he got hurt. In his minor league career, he was worse against lefties, but I think he looked, in very small sample for him even more, looked good. He looked solid, like you mentioned, and I think there's a clear spot for him to platoon with Kepler in right field. But then you think about it and you say Kepler, for the asset that he is on the contract that he has, and I have a piece about this tomorrow at Twins Daily, tomorrow night, if you're going to platoon Kepler, you have to kind of think about, what's the future for him? You want Kepler to be an everyday player. So I think Rooker has a clear spot, at least in a platoon role. And then if Nelly leaves, I think you can shuffle him out of the DH spot too.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. I think Rooker's, potential role grows a lot if Cruz is not back. I think that gives him a real good chance to be on the active roster coming out of spring training. He's a guy who can play some first, play some outfield, probably not play very well in the outfield, but of course that right-handed bat as a complement to those lefties in the corners is a very nice roster piece. Tom says, love Brent Rooker, should be in our lineup for 2021. Hard to disagree with that. So Nash up to 1,800 points as we swing it back over to Matthew here.
Let's go arbitration for 300.
Arbitration for 300. Serving as the team's union rep, he is also the only Twins player who is actually a Twin.
Who is Taylor Rogers.
Taylor Rogers, not Tyler Rogers, not his twin Tyler Rogers. Yes, correct. Of course, Taylor Rogers had a bit of a tough year, a bit of a strange year. We've talked about it a lot on the Pints, on the website, what to make of this small sample struggle where the peripherals were pretty good, but where he just never could find any kind of reliable effectiveness. Kind of had another bad outing in, his second appearance in the playoffs there. And he's going to be a little expensive this year. I don't remember offhand what he made in 2019, but he's probably going to see another raise. What was it?
I think he was in the 6 range.
So you're getting into very expensive territory for a reliever, especially if you're a little cash strapped with payroll going down. Camden says here, 2020 Taylor Rogers is not the real Taylor Rogers, I hope. Do you agree with that, Matthew? Do you think this is a little bit of a blip and not something they should take too seriously as they consider whether they should bring him back at a fairly high price in 2021?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, it's tough. I guess before I had never really thought about moving on from Taylor Rogers, and I'd only really started thinking about it after hearing Bonus on Gleeman and the Geek, and he had started thinking even that it might not necessarily be a guarantee that we bring back Taylor Rogers. I think I would still lean towards bringing him back. I think he just got really unlucky, and I know he kept saying it, and at some point it's you are who you are, but it was also he pitched 20 innings the entire season. His, FIP and all of his underlying stats still supported him being a great relief pitcher. I would still lean towards him being that. If you can get him in the 6 to 7, or it'll probably be more in the $7 million range for just another season, I think it's worth it. You're not committing to multi-season deal. I don't think I would renegotiate to, 2 or 3 years to hang on to him. I would just do this 1 year of arbitration at $7 million and go with him for another season. But I think we saw other relievers step up this season too, where you don't necessarily need to count on Taylor Rogers in your 9th inning role. If he starts to show that maybe he's not ready for that, you have Tyler Duffy, you have Tyler Clippard. If we bring him back, there's other names in the bullpen that can step up where you'll be fine if he's not that same guy. But I think it's worth bringing him back for just another year.
Yeah, a lot of his indispensability, I think, depends on what happens with some of these other pending free agent relievers. As you mentioned, Tyler Clippard is someone they would need to re-sign. Sergio Romo, no guarantees there. Trevor May, another free agent. So potentially some turnover in the Twins bullpen this year, which is why it's kind of interesting to look at some of these bullpen free agents. Andrew, swinging it back to you. You're in second place.
All right, we're going to go arbitration for 400.
Owner of an 87% career success rate on stolen bases, he attempted only 3 steals in 2020.
Who is Byron Buxton?
Byron Buxton. Are the Twins – there's a part of me that wants to say they're not taking advantage enough of his wheels, but then again, he drew, 1 or 2 walks all season. I think he had about 5 times as many home runs as singles. Fact of the matter, he wasn't on first base very much. His season ended in a very bummer of a way. I don't know if Rocco or anyone ever revealed why he was unable to start that last game. I assumed it was concussion issues, but for him to go on the field and get picked off in a key spot, not necessarily a good look in that regard. Buxton has had a tough time staying on the field and has been one of the biggest difference makers in the game when he's been on it. And of course, the Twins do have 2 years of control left. He's got 2 years of arbitration left because of the decision to play a little bit maybe with his service time a couple years back, which was a controversial decision. But I personally am glad we're not heading into our last year of team control with Byron Buxton. I still don't think we've seen him at his full potential. What do you think? What's your vibe on Byron as we head into this offseason? And how much do the Twins need to sort of make contingency plans in center field?
Yeah, I host a podcast with fellow Twins Daily writer Cooper Carlson. We've talked a lot about Byron Buxton, and we both kind of agree that he's the most important position player on this team. When he's healthy, when he's in the lineup and he's playing center field every day, this team is significantly better than when he's not in the lineup. And a lot of it is made of his speed, and I think people kind of want to pigeonhole Byron Buxton into being this 80s leadoff style hitter who's going to slap the ball and get on base and steal bases. But really, he adds more value when he's hitting doubles and he's hitting home runs, and that's who we really want Byron Buxton to be. Obviously, with him, it always comes down to just staying healthy, staying on the field. I know, he made some adjustments to how he plays defensively to limit the amount of times he's crashing into the walls, and I think that hopefully as Byron Buxton continues to mature as a player, he's able to keep himself on the field and stay healthy because, when he's on the field, this team's significantly better.
Yeah, there's so much talk about getting him to not get hurt running into walls. And, of course, I think one of his problems this year was that he still was not fully recovered from that shoulder injury that required surgery after he ran into the wall in Miami last year. But he didn't run into any walls in problematic fashion this year. He hurt himself in spring training, just kind of twisting on his foot. He got hit in the head with the pitch right before the playoffs. It was a deluge of just bad luck and just kind of continues to be. So it's like, what can you do about it? It's just unbelievable. I still think that one of these years he's going to get healthy and it's going to be a revelation personally. Seth here says, Seth Stills of Twins Daily, of course, who sits in on the press conferences often after the game, said that Falvey said Buxton came in and said he wasn't feeling well the day of their last game of the season, which take that for what it's worth, I guess. I would assume that is probably concussion related, but hopefully a full offseason gets Buxton back to where he needs to be and maybe a little more of a normal routine last year. Nash, the board is over to you, my friend. Which way are you going?
Nick, bullpen free agents for 300.
All right, let's head into the relief free agent market. This former All-Star didn't allow a run in 9 appearances for the Padres in 2020 after coming over from Kansas City in a deadline trade.
Who is Trevor Rosenthal?
Trevor Rosenthal, a former star, a former great closer for the St. Louis Cardinals. He has had a good bounce back year. I mean, it was a struggle. He got injured. He was terrible for a while. It's kind of hard to really put a finger on what his value is going to be on the open market this year. Is he a guy that interests you, or does it kind of depend on what the asking price is?
No, he definitely does. I think when I'm playing MLB The Show, I try to think of myself as a GM, and I always go – and I think the Twins might think this way too. I always go after guys, obviously bullpen arms, who throw hard. And Rosenthal's still throwing 98 to 100. And when you're losing Trevor May, who also throws 98 to 100 with his fastball, you need to bring that back. And I know you mentioned that, Nick. You need some velo in the back of your bullpen. I think Jorge Alcala can fill that to a certain extent if he can throw strikes more consistently. But I think they need some velo back there, definitely. I think they need, if they're going to lose Trevor May, they need someone who's going to throw hard, and Trevor Rosenthal does. He's got a track record. He's pitched in the playoffs. You mentioned he's a former star. They loved him in St. Louis. I think he'd be a nice addition.
Yeah, I think you put your finger on it. If May is gone, it really increases the urgency to add a guy like that. And Trevor Rosenthal could be sort of a nice alternative. He'll be cheaper and probably won't require the multi-year deal that Trevor May very well might. So that's going to be an interesting name to keep an eye on as well. If you're watching this live broadcast from any of our streaming platforms, this is Twins Daily Offseason Live. We're playing some Jeopardy here. We've got Andrew, we've got Nash, and we've got Matthew. Working our way through some off-season topics. We'd love to have you guys comment. You can input your answers if you know it. You can ask questions. You can add any remarks you want to the discussion regarding any of these players we're talking about. Trying to keep this just an open-ended discussion and try to figure it out because no one really knows what to expect here. Matthew.
Yeah, let's keep it going with bullpen free agents for 4.
He saved 12 games with a 0.81 ERA as closer for the Chicago White Sox in 2020.
Give me Alex Colome.
Alex Colome, a former Ray, a standout reliever in that White Sox bullpen this year. We saw him firsthand quite a bit. I think he'll be one of the hotter names on this free agent market. I think as we're discussing a lot of these guys, it kind of depends on what happens with these other Twins relievers. If you lose a Trevor May and or a Taylor Rogers, a guy like Colome becomes more attractive, but might be more expensive than either of those guys. How does Alex Colome hit you as you kind of look at this market, Matthew?
Yeah, it's funny. Colome, he had really good numbers, as you said. He had a sub-1 ERA, I think it was. It's right there on the screen, 0.81 ERA. Was one of the best relievers in terms of ERA in the majors this year. But he's also a guy that when the Twins were facing the White Sox and I saw that Colome was coming in, I got super pumped just because, I don't know, he just seems like a guy that you can hit. He doesn't have the nasty stuff. He doesn't strike out. He doesn't have a K per 9 over 10. I think his K per 9 was down at, it was like 6 or 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he doesn't necessarily have the ridiculous strikeout stuff. And prior to this year, he was trending in the wrong direction. I think he had an ERA over 4 last year. So he's probably a guy that because of the save numbers, he's been a frequent closer. So he has sort of that title that people think as, you know, the elite relief pitcher that maybe some of those middle relievers who might have better stuff or more talent might not, you know, command as big of a contract, where he seems more of kind of a name brand guy with the saves with, you know, from the Rays and now on to the White Sox. And so he's definitely a guy that I would steer away from. I like my bullpen guys to have high velocity, high strikeout numbers, and he's just not that type of guy. So I would try to stay away from Colome personally.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to buy high on relief arms, right? And as you just pointed out, I mean, Colome is kind of the perfect example of how up and down it can be. He was unbelievable this year, not so much last year. So that's a name that makes me a little bit scared. I think he might be kind of asking a lot just because he's coming off that great season. He might as well try to capitalize. As we swing back around here to Andrew, the board is yours, my friend.
Twins free agents for 400.
Twins free agents for 400. This 33-year-old played only 23 regular season games in his first season with the Twins.
Oh, man.
A little ambiguous.
That is. Oh, boy. I don't know.
Anybody else want to register a guess? Matthew.
This is the one, this is redemption for my last one. Who is Alex Avila?
That's like poetic justice. It was the one you got wrong, and now it's right to steal an answer. I love it. Andrew, what's your vibe on Alex Avila? The Twins, obviously, you know, Ryan Jeffers came through this year. He's clearly going to be a factor next year. Mitch Garver, I don't think they're going to do anything drastic because he struggled while he was probably hurt all year. Do you think there's an opportunity or a desire to bring Alex Avila back? I mean, I think he's a really good fit in sort of a three-way rotation with those guys. At the same time, I don't know if there's going to be enough playing time to make it worth his while. And, I mean, as much as he was taking good plate appearances, it didn't look like there was anything left in the bat. What's your feeling about Alex Avila and the prospect of potentially bringing him back, Andrew?
That's going to be a hard pass for me. I think they got a lot of depth at the catching position. I think Ryan Jeffers is going to be the guy. And between Jeffers and Garver, they have plenty of options there. There's no need to bring back Alex Avila.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, you said it right there. That's probably about it. It's probably pretty low chances. I see Trey Riesgraf asking, where can I watch this full thing from the start? If you go to twinsdaily.com tomorrow morning, we're going to have a new article up. This video will be embedded. In fact, I think if you go to our YouTube right after it ends, you can probably watch the whole thing. The whole idea with this new series, Offseason Live, is just to make this content very accessible to people, however you want to watch it. There will also be a podcast version released. So if you subscribe to our podcast via Apple or Libsyn or what have you, you can listen to the audio version as well. You're not going to see all these cool little graphics of the Jeopardy game I put together, but I still think the substance will be pretty good. Nash, it's your turn, and Seth also has a question for you. Where is the baby blue Donaldson jersey?
Seth, hold on, bro.
There he goes. He sprung into action there. Wow.
I saw it.
I hope you didn't hurt your calf.
No, I didn't.
Oh, it's on. It's on. There we go.
All right. And I got it for my next Nick. Potpourri 400. Let's run away.
Potpourri for 400. He's looking to make a big move with the lead. Oh, look who it is. The Twins made Josh Donaldson the highest paid free agent in franchise history when they guaranteed him this amount last winter.
Nick, how much is $92 million?
I guess how much is $92 million be the correct version of that question. I don't know. Wes said what is $92 million, but you are indeed correct there, getting up to 2,500 on the chart. Obviously, Josh Donaldson is not going anywhere. The big question is just how much can the Twins count on him to be their third baseman? How much should they be sort of, making contingency plans with Marwin and A-Ray both up for free agency? What would your kind of planning strategy be here with Josh Donaldson heading into his second season with the Twins, Nash?
Yeah, you need insurance for him. Definitely. I agree with that. But Twins were 19-9 when he played. He struggled in his first 7 games, but he actually was worse in his first 7 games in 2019 and ended up in September. His on-base percentage was .400. I think he slugged .525 in September. He's an impact player when he's on the field. We knew that when they signed him. And I know Aaron wrote that they got exactly what they were looking for with him when he was on the field. But, yeah, they need to sign a better third baseman. I think they need I'm looking at Asdrubal Cabrera. I really like Asdrubal Cabrera as a good veteran option for them. Jurickson Profar, I know Matthew mentioned in his article, I think is really intriguing. I think he'll probably look to play more. But they need someone who is insurance for Josh. Where I also think that he's the type of guy, and, I didn't FaceTime him last night, but he seems like the type of guy who doesn't want to take days off. Like if Rocco were to approach him and say, we need to give you this day, he needs to buy into that. I think if that's a problem. And I know he mentioned that too, I think when he first got hurt of like, I need to take my pride out of it. So if they say, Josh, we're going to give you a day off once a week and that we think that'll help you, he needs to buy into that as well. And if they think that that's going to help, I'm on board. But Cabrera and Profar are 2 guys I'm looking at just off the bat.
Yeah, I'm going to take this opportunity, even though no one asked for it, to get on my soapbox and give my rant. I was not impressed by year 1 of the Josh Donaldson experiment. I know Nash probably doesn't like to hear this. He's a big fan, and I want to be a big fan. The bottom line is that the guy, getting a historic contract, largest contract in franchise history, Twins putting a lot of their hopes on him to help them take the next step. He was not there when they needed him most. And, I'm not going to hold it against him that he got hurt. I don't think it's because he's not taking care of the calf. It's been a problem. I'm sure he's doing everything he can. But, getting himself kicked out of the biggest game of the regular season was, to me, not a very good look. Coming out after and sort of showing this indignant pride about it and saying, I nailed it, acting like it was the right thing and I need to hold these umps accountable. The only one who was held accountable in that situation was Donaldson and the Twins, because he got kicked out of what looked like a game that could have potentially cost them the regular season, division championship. Thankfully, the White Sox fell flat on their face, and the Twins were able to take it back. But, that's just not – and then he comes out, now and he's talking about how he loves to see pitchers get hurt by the shift, and the Twins are one of the biggest shifting teams in the league. I just wonder if he's really on board and bought in. And, to the extent that he's setting any kind of example or firing up his teammates by going out there and, arguing with the umps and kicking dirt on the plate and really accomplishing nothing of any substance. I guess he inspired Eddie Rosario to do the same thing in a playoff game at the end of the year. And then Rosario gets himself kicked out, and Jake Cave is up there striking out in a huge spot. So I think that in my eyes, Josh Donaldson has. I would like to see him take some steps forward and sort of get with the program here in 2021. Nash, I know you're a big Josh Donaldson defender.
No, I hear you. I'll
give you a chance to speak on that.
No, I'm with you. I agree. I'm disappointed. Of course, we're all disappointed with the way year 1 went. But I think I try to look at the fact that they were 19-9 when he played. I also believe that he adds a spark when he's in the lineup. I think we all agree with that. The lineup just looks different when he's hitting second. It just feels different. It feels like there's more there. It feels like it's deeper and better, because it is. When he plays, he's great. But I hear you, Nick. Like, he needs to stay healthy. And, who he is, I think sometimes probably rubs people the wrong way. And I think it's like, I don't know. I'm not one to say that he made the right choice or the wrong choice or any of that. I can see both sides of it. I understand what you're saying as well. Like, I totally understand what you're saying, Nick. I think the main thing is he just needs to stay healthy, because the numbers are there. When he plays, they win more, and that's the most important thing for me.
Well, there's no question about the impact he can make, and we all hope that he makes it. And to be clear, I know when I said this on Twitter, I had a bunch of people yelling at me because they said, don't be so stuffy. Don't be such a lame ass. I don't have a problem with guys flipping bats. I don't have a problem with guys chirping at the opponent or the umps. And in fact, I probably wouldn't have even really cared that much about what happened if it would have been in any other situation. But this is like, they knew at the time, this is the biggest game of the regular season. The division was on the line,
He's short fused. He's short fused. He's short fused. There's no question. He was mad all the way around the bases. He could have not done it, and he did it. So, he's got to stick.
No question. And yep. I mean, I think the only thing that irked me so much was coming out after and saying, I nailed it. I'm holding someone accountable. Like, I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Matthew, the board is yours, my friend.
Let's go rotation targets for 2.
Rotation for 200. He was the Mariners' ace before a 2018 trade to the Yankees, but missed most of this year due to injury.
Who is James Paxton?
Who is James Paxton, famous for having an eagle land on him at Target Field, famously. James Paxton is another interesting name. We've discussed several guys already who have great track records, great ability, but coming off years that were just sort of total washes. I don't know how much you chalk that up to the strangeness of this season. I think Paxton already had some injury issues going into the original spring training too, so not sure how much you can chalk it up to that. When he's at his peak, he's a potential ace. He's a great pitcher. Does he interest you as a free agent target, Matthew?
He does not interest me. I think he's a guy that I think there's enough upside there that he's shown where he's going to command pretty decent money. Not the top dollar money that Trevor Bauer is going to make, but I think he'll be sort of in that tier 2 with the other Yankee target with Tanaka. I think he's going to get a multi-year deal from somebody for 60, 70 million, something like that. And that's just not a guy that I would like to see the Twins go after. I think there's a few things, few reasons for that. One, just being that injury history, like you said, even before this season, he's been a guy that's consistently struggled with in arm problems. He's not a guy he's never thrown 200 innings. He's hardly ever thrown 150 innings in a season. So he's just a guy who's consistently injured. And the other thing that I think about quite a bit, and especially now after watching this White Sox team this year, is he's left-handed. And the Chicago White Sox and most of the American League teams just crush left-handed pitching. We have a very right-handed dominant baseball league right now, and especially the White Sox with Luis Robert, with Tim Anderson, but with Eloy, all of the guys that they have, they just crush left-handed pitching, and I could just totally see trotting him out there in an ALCS or whatever against the White Sox, and that just going real poorly. So he's not a guy that I have interest in. I would have much more interest in the other rotation target that I'm assuming is the last
still sitting out there.
But
oh, the suspense.
3-100.
Yeah, that's a good point about the left-handed thing. I hadn't really thought of that aspect of it. The Twins are very right-handed as it is in the rotation, and they are likely going to stay that way. You look at Yohan Duran, Jordan Balazovic, a lot of these guys, Blaine Enlow, a lot of their top prospects coming up are throw from the right side. Jury's sort of out on Lewis Thorpe at this point, but they don't really have those big southpaws coming up through the system, and maybe that's a good thing when you look at the layout of this division. Swinging back around to Mr. Gibo. The board's starting to get a little thin. You got some ground to make up. Where are you going here?
I don't feel confident in it, but I got to try to make a move. We're going potpourri for 500.
Potpourri for 500. All right, here we go. The Twins hit 3 triples in 2020. This outfielder had 2 of them.
Don't know the answer. I'm going to go, who was Byron Buxton?
That is incorrect. Would anyone like to steal? Nash.
Who is Jake Cave, Nick?
Jake Cave. I was surprised when I looked up this stat. I mean, how did Buxton? I don't even know if he had their other triple. I don't think he did. 0 triples. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was Ildemaro Vargas who made a brief appearance on the roster. Jake Cave had an interesting year. Looked good at times. Looked bad for the most part. Terrible plate discipline. Made some good defensive plays. They've got Lamont Wade in the mix as sort of a redundant player in that 4th outfielder role. So, Andrew, what's your vibe on Jake Cave? Do you think there's a chance? I mean, of course he'll be back, I would assume, because he's not even in arbitration. There's not really a need to non-tenure him. But do you think he'll be on the active roster? He'll be a big part of the plan? And, how would you sort of slot him in as you head into the offseason?
I think a lot of it's going to depend on what they end up doing with Eddie Rosario. But now that we've seen Brent Rooker, we've seen Alex Kirilloff, I think that kind of squeezes Jake Cave out a little bit. I believe he still has some options. He may kind of be that up and down guy. Like he's kind of filled that role over the past couple of years. That's ultimately where I see him. I think he'll probably see reduced playing time again with the emergence of Rooker and Kirilloff. Just kind of squeezes Jake Cave out of the mix a little bit.
Yeah. You look at Kirilloff coming in and making his debut in the playoffs there, and that was pretty impressive in a very tough spot. I got to imagine he's going to be factoring into the plans right off the bat next year. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects guys like Jake Cave, who, there's so many left-handed hitting corner outfielders in this mix. At some point, you're going to have to make some tough decisions there. Nash, you've got yourself a little lead, and the board is now yours. Which route are you going here?
Let's go bullpen free agents for 200. Oh, I'll go 100. I'll go 100.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's nice of you. There's no need to foot on the throat here. He debuted for the Twins in 2011. 8 years later, he made his first All-Star team as an athletic.
Who is Liam Hendriks, Nick?
Liam Hendriks, he looked good last night. Having a great playoffs. He's been arguably the best relief pitcher in the American League. I don't think anyone saw that coming when he was with the Twins. I don't think anyone could have seen it coming. Although I did see Aaron Gleeman tweeted the other day a pretty interesting point, which is that the Twins parted ways with him, and he had a 6 ERA. He'd been a top prospect. They never even gave him a shot in the bullpen. He went to Toronto, I believe, after that, went straight to the bullpen and immediately gained 3 miles per hour on his fastball. I don't know. I don't think it would have changed anything, but you would have liked to see the Twins maybe give him a shot, and I think that's something that's changed. They're having a lot of success now, sort of converting these fringy starters into relievers, so another sign of their evolution maybe. But Hendriks is probably going to be the top name on the free agent market here among relievers, coming in with a lot of steam with the way he's pitching in the playoffs. Would you be interested in going into that real high end of the market and trying to bring back a Liam Hendriks?
Oh, God. I would love it. I would love if they brought Liam Hendriks back. I think the thing that would stop them might be him. Maybe he doesn't want to go back to Minnesota, and it's new front office, new management. But, I think that would be the thing that would stop them, and also just avoiding an Addison Reed-like contract. But it would be more than that. But this guy's he's a baller. I mean, you saw him the other day, pitched 3 innings to close that game. It was so impressive. This guy, he can pitch in big moments. He's got great energy. He throws so hard. He's got a great slide. Like, he's the full package as a reliever. I would love him here. Or in Minnesota.
Yeah, we've talked about how up and down relievers are, and it's pretty dangerous to invest in that end of the free agent market, I think, on relievers. But Hendriks is a guy who, if he stays healthy, it's pretty hard to see him falling off. He is legit. He's got a lot of pitches. He throws hard. And he really steps up in big spots there. Seth says, I'm pretty sure Liam still lives in Fort Myers. I think. Never know. Okay, well, maybe he'll sign with the Red Sox then. I don't know. But maybe the Twins have a shot. I don't know. Also, Seth asks Matthew if that is Pennywise behind you.
Yes, it's Halloween, so I figured let's get in
there you go. There you go. Okay. You're definitely of the right theme for spooky season here. And with that in mind, let's have you pick. We got 5 left on the board here.
All right. Well, I teased it already, so let's do rotation targets for 100.
Famously a fan of flying drones and picking fights on Twitter, this right-hander is the son of Twins right fielder Max Kepler.
Who is Daddy Trevor Bauer?
Trevor Bauer, yes, of course. Not literally Max Kepler's son, but quite the running joke on Twitter and the internet after Max Kepler homered off him in 4 or 5 straight plate appearances a couple years ago. Crazy. Now, of course, Trevor Bauer pitched for the Reds this year. He's a Cy Young frontrunner. He had a phenomenal year. Number 1 name on the market, going to command a handsome sum. I would love to bring in a Trevor Bauer, theoretically, to join the front of this rotation. I don't know if it's remotely realistic. Matthew, do you think there's any chance the Twins are getting that mix?
It's weird because if it was any other starting pitcher who was the top line starting pitcher, probable Cy Young Award winner entering free agency, I would say there is no chance. But Trevor Bauer is just such a quirky dude who he just does things differently than every other starting pitcher. If you just follow him on Twitter, you can tell, and you watch his YouTube channel, he's just a weird dude in a good way. I think he's good for baseball, and I think he produces good content, and I think he brings fans into the game. But he's just the type of guy that I think he's talked about, throughout his career about signing 1-year deals, betting on himself, making huge money year to year, and just capitalizing on himself that way, which I think is a huge strike in the Twins' favor. I don't think the Twins would sign, him to a 6-year, $100+ million deal. But if he would do a 1-year, I don't even know the number, $30 million for 1 year, I could see the Minnesota Twins doing that. And he's also a guy that I don't think he's necessarily enamored of, I want to go pitch in New York, I want to go pitch in Boston. I think he's the type of guy that he's very savvy. He'll go to where the front office is smart, where they're going to bring in, good players, where they're going to put him in a good position to succeed. And then obviously you have the relationship there with the Minnesota Twins, front office already with Derek Falvey. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
And his father, of course.
And his father, exactly. So
it's good to play with Dad.
I think there are reasons to think that there could be something there. I don't know if it'll happen. It might be, wishful thinking. But like I said, I think of any potential reigning Cy Young Award winner to sign a 1-year deal in Minnesota, I think he's probably the most likely bet to do it.
Yeah, I forgot about that, how he mentioned that his sort of intention was to just go 1-year deal to 1-year deal for like the rest of his career, which that would actually make it a lot more feasible for the Twins. They sort of made their big long-term investment. I don't think we're going to see any kind of huge long-term deal after they went and got Donaldson last year, but it wouldn't shock me if they're willing to take a fairly big splash on a short-term deal and try to make another run at it here in 2021. So that'll be interesting to see. Back around to Andrew, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Oh, I believe you're muted, my friend.
Sorry about that. Twins free agents for $300.
All right. He made only 4 appearances for the Twins in 2020 after making the All-Star team in 2019.
Who is Jake Odorizzi?
Jake Odorizzi, the by far the worst luck, even more so than Buxton, even more so than Donaldson. This guy had the worst luck of the year by far. God, you got to feel for him. He came off that big All-Star year, best year of his career, goes into free agency shackled with that draft pick, decides to take the qualifying offer, ends up making, a third of what he was supposed to make on the big 1-year payday. And then just these tough luck injuries all year, not able to factor into the playoffs. I personally would love to bring Jake Odorizzi back. I have to think that there's going to be a deal to be made there. I don't know how high the demand is going to be when he wasn't able to find a ton of interest last offseason. What's your feeling on Jake Odorizzi and maybe bringing him back and giving him another go?
Yeah, you just kind of sold for me there, Nick. I'm really high on bringing him back, and you do feel bad for him. The guy kind of took the gamble on himself, accepting the qualifying offer, trying to get parlay that into a big free agency deal, and he just had a really tough go of it this year. Couldn't really stay healthy, but I think he is a guy that makes a lot of sense for the Twins, and given what happened in 2020, his value has certainly dropped, and the Twins right now know him better than any other team in the league. So there's certainly makes a lot of sense. It's a good mutual fit, and I would be very happy to see it happen, and I want to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't lose sight of how good this guy was in 2019. An All-Star, as we mentioned, there was a 60-game stretch. I believe after 60 games, he had like a 1.5 ERA. If he would have come back and done this year, he would have been the best pitcher in baseball. And he was the only Twins starter who gave them any kind of decent performance in the playoffs last year. So I think there's some hidden, I don't want to say it's upside because we've seen it, but people have maybe forgotten about the kind of impact he can make. So Odorizzi is going to be an interesting name on that free agent market. Nash, the board is yours.
Let's go arbitration for 100, Nick.
This saucy 2019 Silver Slugger is entering arbitration for the first time this offseason.
Who is Mitch Garver?
Mitch Garver. Who is Mitch Garver? We find ourselves asking this after a Jekyll and Hyde act over the last 2 seasons. He was, as we mentioned, a Silver Slugger in 2019, had one of the greatest offensive seasons by a catcher in MLB history. Could not have possibly looked worse at the plate this year. Struck out in literally, he struck out more than Miguel Sano, which is saying a lot. Struck out in literally over half bats, and when he came back, he just had no clue. He had a couple of hard hits, but otherwise was just swinging out of his shoes. Couldn't find the ball. I tend to chalk it up to the short season. I don't think he was ever healthy. I think he's done enough, in his career with the Twins to give me confidence. But it's, how are you going to plan the balance between him and Jeffers after Jeffers came up and showed so much this season as you sort of plan for 2021?
I think, there's been some chatter about moving Mitch Garver, and I think it would not be wise now because his value is so low. I did make a case all offseason. We were talking about regression for Mitch Garver. I made the case that because he's so disciplined, it wasn't like he was making contact on 90% of pitches outside of the zone or anything crazy. He's a really disciplined hitter, so he's always going to walk a lot. But that doesn't fly when you're swinging through fastballs right down the middle, and that's what we saw from him. So you have to wonder if it's still a timing issue, and then it maybe turned into a confidence issue for him. But yeah, I think you at least go through the first half of 2021 with him and Jeffers and more of a 75-25 platoon against lefties for Garver, and then kind of work it out and give him at-bats against righties too and see if he can get back to close to 2019 form. But I think a lot of factors were at play for him this year.
I'm with you. It's interesting how Jeffers and Garver really have pretty similar profiles. They're both very disciplined. They don't swing a lot out of the zone, as you mentioned. When they make contact, they can crush the ball. They were, two of the highest exit velocities on the team, two of the best, lowest chase rates. I see we have a comment here saying Rocco likes platooning catchers anyway. Garver versus lefties, Jeffers versus righties. I mean, they're both right-handed hitters, but I think that would make sense when you look at how good Garver's been against lefties. But I do think that, as you go into 2021 here, Jeffers is going to be lined up for the bulk of the playing time. He really made a statement this year, and Garver was hurt, but needs to kind of earn his way back, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out there. We're getting down to the last couple questions here as we swing back over to Matthew.
Let's go Potpourri for 100.
Potpourri. According to StatCast, his pitch framing ranked in the 90th percentile among MLB catchers in 2020. Speak of the devil.
Speaking of the devil, Ryan Jeffers.
Who is Ryan Jeffers? Yeah, so, we just kind of covered it. We've talked about Avila. I don't think there's a lot of steam for him to be coming back next year. I think everyone's kind of expecting the Twins to go into this next season with those two as their primary guys. To what extent are you trying to find, what are you looking for on the free agent market or the trade market as far as a complement with, Jeffers potentially facing some regression as a sophomore and Garver coming off this tough year?
No, I think you're set at catcher. I don't think I would make any moves there. I think you're fine with the two of them, and should an emergency appear, you have Estadio still on the team to be able to do that. But no, I'm just excited. I think with the minor leaguers who the Twins called up this year and gave a shot with Ryan Jeffers, with Brent Rooker, and then even with Alex Kirilloff, even though it was only one game, I think it just showed how much potential is still in the minor league system with still Trevor Larnach, Royce Lewis down in the farm system. So I know not exactly answering your question, Nick, but just thinking about Ryan Jeffers, I think that's just what gets me excited is just we were, I think, disappointed about how the Jorge Polanco's and Max Kepler's played, but I think there's still plenty to be excited about with the farm system and how they played and how their first impressions were, and then with still a bunch more talent to come up next year.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that does kind of answer the question in a way too, which is that the Twins don't necessarily need to hit the free agency pool that hard in a lot of cases. They've got some guys that can fill these holes. They've got a Jeffers, they've got Rooker, they've got Kirilloff, they've got Larnach, who we haven't seen yet. So I'll be curious to see if they're trying to save some money, to what extent they're going to be willing to hand it to the kids at a time where they're still, in a mode of championship aspirations. We got one left, so I'm going to make the choice here for you, Andrew. Bullpen free agents for 200.
Right.
Looks like Nash pretty much has it locked up unless you can win this one for 1,300. But he's no doctor, but this left-hander was surgical as closer on Washington's World Series club in 2019.
Who is Doolittle?
Sean Doolittle, Dr.
Sean
Doolittle. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yes, indeed. We've talked about several guys who are coming off these injury-riddled seasons. I think he missed a good amount of this season and is now kind of hitting the free agent market with his stock down a little bit. But I love Sean Doolittle. I love him as a person. I think he's a very enjoyable character, and he's been a great pitcher. I think he'd be an interesting guy for the Twins to target, maybe as a complement to Taylor Rogers or maybe as a replacement for Taylor Rogers. I don't know. What's your vibe on Sean Doolittle heading into the offseason? Yeah,
I'm very high on Sean Doolittle. I think the one thing that the Twins bullpen is missing is some late inning, high leverage left-handed pitching. Now they have Taylor Rogers, and there's not a whole lot there beyond Taylor Rogers, and so Doolittle certainly fills that role, and I think he would be a really, really good addition for the Twins, and I hope they go after him aggressively and bring him up here.
I'm with you, sir. I think he'd be one of my top targets. So there we go. We have cleared the board.
No Final Jeopardy, Nick?
No, I still haven't figured out how to program that. Although I did want to make you guys write little handwritten doodles, but I'm still figuring out that aspect of the functionality. So our final score: Nash takes the W with a score of 3,200. Matthew comes in second at 2,400, and Andrew right behind him at 2,200. That was a lot of fun, guys. I think we covered a lot of ground. The idea here was to kind of have this serve as a primer for all the offseason coverage we're going to be doing at Twins Daily. So as I mentioned, you're going to be able to find this video on our YouTube. We'll have an article on the site featuring it tomorrow. and we're going to dive into a whole lot of stuff. We're going to have entire episodes dedicated to all the topics that we had on the Jeopardy board here. We'll be looking at free agent starters, relievers, possible bench options, possible DHs to replace Nelson Cruz if that's the way they go. We'll be looking at these arbitration scenarios. We'll be doing a stay or go with some of these Twins free agents. I think they're going to face some tough choices there. So this was our first episode of Offseason Live. I recommend that you subscribe to our podcast. You'll be able to get the audio version of any episodes you miss. Of course, come to Twins Daily, every day and check it out. You're going to find articles by all these great writers that we got going here. Our excellent Jeopardy contestants who showed their smarts here on the board. Any final words here as we take off? Andrew, how are you feeling about your performance tonight?
I had a chance there to pull ahead and take the lead, and I kind of got aggressive with it, and the question threw me, and then I got cold. I went 0 for 2, and I just tumbled, and it was a tough one. But hats off to Nash there for taking it.
You'll bounce back and get him next time, no doubt. Matthew, you gave it a good run, came up just a little short of Nash. Are you feeling like you gave it your all tonight?
Yeah, I gave it my all, but it unfortunately wasn't good enough. And I got to hit the book like Nash. I got to start listening to more Locked On Twins podcasts, brush up on my Twins trivia, and I'll be ready for next time.
I like to hear it. Nash, I got to say, when I put the Josh Donaldson question in there, I was hoping you would answer it.
Oh, God, this is perfect.
For you to pick it right after you put on the jersey was some sort of divine intervention, I feel like. Great job. How are you feeling about the victory here, sir?
Well, I think this game was over this morning. It felt good. I think, we battled and kept our legs going and played well. So it feels good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Make sure to catch the next episode of Offseason Live. I believe we'll be looking at the payroll next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. These are going to be every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. If you want to set your schedule, check out twinsdaily.com. Of course, big thank you to Andrew, Matthew, and Nash. And we'll see you guys next time on Offseason Live.
Andrew, Matthew, Nick, see you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.